Hi guys, it's Danny. Alrighty, today we're gonna discuss about orchids that were propagated from seed versus orchids that are cloned. Which one to choose and how does it affect us? Do we really need to care? And this is a video that I really wanted to do for some time now because it's something that I do take into consideration when I pick my orchids. So let's first give a little background. As you might know, orchids can be propagated by seeds. It takes a while, quite a few years, and it takes special conditions in a laboratory, but they can propagate the seeds. And considering the fact that orchids produce millions of seeds, or at least hundreds of thousands, it's kind of economical to propagate them from seed. However, it's not the only method. Orchids can also be cloned, and this implies taking a tissue sample and then just cloning it in a laboratory. Now, orchids on the market can be propagated from seed or can be cloned. There's really no way to really know how they were obtained. One of my viewers did ask me about it. So, no, I don't think there's a way to figure out if your orchid is a seedling from seed or it's a clone. There is actually a way to know, and this is the subject of our video. What is the difference between orchids that came from seeds and orchids that were cloned, and how to choose? Let us first take the orchids that come from seeds, the hybrids. I don't refer here to species necessarily. So you might have noticed that in a regular human family, not all kids look alike, although they have the same parents. And sometimes not even twins look alike. Well, pretty much this is what happens with orchids as well. It's all a lottery of genetics in the end. So from the same seed batch, from the same parents, you can actually get individuals that do not look the same. And this is the case with my Tolumnia orchid here, and I'll show you what I mean. So look how my Tolumnia looks like. You see the pattern? She's very pretty, but if you take a look at the picture it's advertised with, you can see it doesn't really look anything like it. It does have similarities, but it's not identical. Now with Tolumnias, it's just so easy to grow them from seed. It takes only a few years until you actually reach a full mature plant, 2 to 3 years to be more exact, which is like a second in the orchid world, so it's actually easy to propagate them from seed. For this reason, there is a whole bunch of variety in the Tolumnia hybrids on the market. So in many cases, you actually end up with an orchid that really doesn't look too much like the picture it's advertised with. Some orchids are more prone to this than others. In the case of Tolumnia orchids, I don't really mind that. They are really cheap, they grow really fast. It's not something that is like a crown jewel to my collection, so I really don't mind a bit of surprise when I purchase a Tolumnia orchid. So Tolumnias are kind of like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get, and I'm kind of fine with that. Now, when an orchid is cloned, we don't have the genetic lottery anymore, because cloning is actually what it sounds like. It's practically obtaining a totally identical plant from a different plant. So this is why cloned orchids look exactly the same between them. And not only do they look exactly the same, they smell exactly the same, and most probably they perform the same. There are individuals which are more vigorous or faster growing, so people clone them to obtain another plant with the same features. Now, this is especially useful for those hybrids which only happen once in a blue moon. And I have an example for you here. Take into consideration the Monierara Millennium Magic, famous black orchid. Well, if you look at the parents, they're not really black. And many seedlings actually don't turn out black. They have spots, they are kind of brownish. In any case, only a handful of the seeds are actually black. So in order to propagate that particular orchid, so you have a black orchid as well, they actually need to clone it. If you take a Monierara Millennium Magic grown from seed from eBay, advertised as a black orchid, you might have the surprise that you will not have a black orchid when it blooms. And this is because it's simply not that particular seed you're looking for. Okay, now that we know a little bit about seed orchids versus clone orchids, it's easy to tell what we actually want. I did see quite a lot of videos lately saying, oh, this is seed grown and it's gonna be special. Yeah, it's gonna be special, it's gonna be unique, but sometimes it might not be what you actually want. So for this reason, it's always a good idea to read the description of an orchid on its seller's page. And Schwerter actually does a good job at this. So Schwerter has some orchids which are specified to be mericlones. Practically this means it's a clone from an awarded plant or a strain of plants which have particular features that you're actually looking for. So Schwerter actually does a good job in specifying if it's a mericlone or if it's not a mericlone. If it doesn't say anything, you can rest assured it's not a mericlone. And I have the Tolunias to prove it. But I did purchase a Vanda denisoniana, which is orange. Now this is a pretty rare type of orchid. And to be sure that I get the orange variety, I checked the description. And indeed, it said it was a mericlone. This means I will not be surprised when it's gonna bloom because I know it's gonna be orange. If it didn't say that, I might have the surprise to find a yellowish or spotted or whatever type of other Vanda denisoniana variety there is out there. So what should you purchase, the seed orchids or the cloned orchids? Well, it's really up to you. If you want something that will surprise you that might not look like the picture advertised, you can go ahead and purchase the seed-grown orchid. If it's not something you truly want to look like the picture advertised, go for seed-grown. You're gonna have a surprise. The pro is that, yeah, it's gonna be special. Only you will have that particular orchid. The con is, it might be faulty. And this is something that actually happens particularly on eBay with sellers that come from Asia. I have a Phalaenopsis bellina. It was advertised like a Violacea. It's not a Violacea. It might be a Chimera, which is a cross between bellina and Violacea. It might be a bellina cross, but it's not the one that I wanted. It was a seedling and it came from Asia and it was seed grown. So in that case, I didn't want that particular variety, so I kind of failed. I repurchased it from Schwerter as a clone and actually got what I wanted. So if you don't mind what you're actually gonna get, you can go for the seed grown. But if you look for a specific type of orchid with specific features, I don't know, fragrance, pattern, blackness, whatever, I would suggest that you actually go for a mericlone. It's not gonna be special, but in the end, who cares? It's gonna be a black orchid. It's gonna look like the picture, and you know what you're purchasing actually, particularly if you purchase it at a very young age and you need to wait a few years for it to bloom. I don't know why, but my biggest pet peeve is to get Vanda seedlings, which grow so slow, and then to find out that they're not necessarily what I expected them to be. And there's another orchid which tends to do that, and this is the Maxillaria variabilis, which can bloom either yellow, either a dark brown. If you get it from seed, you might end up with a yellow version. If you didn't want the yellow version, that might suck. But if you get a mericlone, you can rest assured it's gonna be dark brown. So you see, this is the difference. So it only depends on what you want. Sometimes mericlones can be a little bit more expensive, particularly if they come from an awarded plant, because it has some special features. But if that's what you're looking for, then definitely mericlones are worth the money, at least in my opinion. If I want a specific type of orchid, I'm only gonna buy mericlones. Nothing from seed, nothing from eBay, nothing at a very young age. Because it's a lottery in the end. It really is, no matter the seller, it's a lottery. Now again, Schwerter has some orchids which are crosses. They're not sure exactly what's gonna end up because it's their own crosses. And if you look on the Schwerter website, you can see they actually post 2 pictures. These are the parents. There isn't any picture of the final product, and each product might actually vary. So if I order that orchid and you order the exact same orchid, we might actually get a different looking orchid, which is not bad by any means. But if it's not what you were looking for, why should you risk it? So in the end, the decision is really yours. But it's better to make an informed decision rather than to just go buy anything that you see kind of nice on eBay. To me, in my opinion, eBay is the last source where you should kind of buy orchids from. Better go for a nursery, especially a reputable one, because most likely they have in their description the history of the orchid, whether it's a clone or it's a seed-grown orchid, and it might actually differ a little bit from the picture you see. So with this in mind, hope you are more informed now when you purchase orchids, and you have a basic idea of what mericlones and seedlings and all of that mean. So hope you found this useful. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up and a share. Subscribe to my channel for regular orchid videos. Feel free to leave me comments, suggestions, or questions in the comment section below. And also, if you click on the left side of your screen, you'll be directed to orchidnature.com, where you'll find care sheets, identification sheets, and also you can talk to us in the forum section. And on the right side of your screen, you can click to watch another orchid video. Thank you for joining. I'll see you next time. Bye!